This meeting is being recorded.
But yeah, I'm just gonna say a couple of words. So, hey everyone, welcome to the first university-focused event at Celo. I'm TC, and I manage the. Oh, sorry, can you? Yeah, thank you. So I'm TC, and I manage the Celo University Guild program. A bit about me: I'm originally from South Africa, and then I did my undergrad at Duke in the US, and then my MBA at HEC in France. So I have seen a lot of different education styles, and my passion is to support the development of blockchain wherever the stage of the university is. So I would say the mission of this program is twofold. One, it's to raise awareness through the student clubs, so funding activities such as hackathons and conferences, but also secondly, to embed Celo into the existing structures such as lectures or research labs or incubators and entrepreneurship programs and so forth. So today we'll have a mix of business and technical schools that are at different levels. So there are people who are ready to launch validators, but there are also people that's very much just starting out. And the goal here is to connect to everybody and bring prosperity to all. And I guess lastly, the program for today is that this morning is a bit more introductory. So we will have an intro to Celo from Sochi, and then also a history and future of blockchain clubs. And in the afternoon, it will be more of a deep dive into the developing world, a look in the developing world of where blockchain is, a couple of technical workshops, and also a few corporate talks by a startup, Fly Wallet, and also by a more established consulting company, Accenture. And we will end off with a networking cocktail. So this event today really needs to give thanks to HEC and KRYPTOSPHERE. They're the ones who made it happen. So Laurie and Jules, if you want to come up and say a few words about your club.
Thank you. So thank you for being here. It's good to meet you all. My name is Laurie Jaco. I'm an MBA student as well as HEC Paris, so as you did the MBA right before me. There I decided to found a blockchain club with a colleague of mine, mostly because it was not present yet at HEC. And we believe that it's important to have it to as many schools as possible. And that's why I love what you are all doing at KRYPTOSPHERE as well. So basically what we do, education, like many clubs do, but one of the biggest problem overall lately. It's very good to have speaker over and people like Celo here to be able to get to know a bit more about different use cases, about what you can do and how we as clubs can participate to it. So I really hope you will enjoy the event today. If you need anything, we'll be here to help. And then I wish you a very good day.
Oh, my name is Jules. So I'm from KRYPTOSPHERE. So it's a consortium of blockchain society that we created in France to gather the whole ecosystem. So we are present in 24 schools, engineering, blockchain, and universities. Sorry, engineering. And what we are trying to build is to try some stuff to create bigger events for two reasons. for examples, there are stuff that we can share together as blockchain clubs. So what we have building in France, we can build it like much wider. That's why also we are here, like sharing job opportunities, sharing training content, and creating events dedicated to students. So when we're creating event for students in France, we can also welcome everybody that want to. Sometimes it's easier to welcome people from Belgium or England that are closer than people from the south of France. So that is a thing, our geographical border do not have much sense in our on-chain world. So if you have any question today, happy to talk.
Thank you, Jules and Chloe. Oh, sorry. And next up, we will have Sochi, who will give an introduction of Celo.
Everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Sochi Casador, and I lead ecosystem growth at Celo. I'm going to talk first about there we go. I'm going to first talk about Celo's mission. So Celo's mission is to build an open financial system that creates conditions of prosperity for all. This mission is deeply meaningful for me. My mother is from a very small town in Mexico that had a population of 100 people without running water or electricity. And I've seen firsthand how access to basic financial tools can change lives. Celo is a mobile first blockchain. And the reason that's so important is we want to give everybody the ability to access crypto on their telephones. You can see just as the penetration of smartphones is growing over the last few years, this is really a big deal. You know, I think historically, when you look at technology, you've seen like countries basically leapfrog mobile compared to like traditional broadband. And so this mobile first is a big piece for us. And just to talk a little bit about the platform, I think one of the benefits of Celo is that we've abstracted a lot of the complexity of blockchain. There's 3 components. One is the platform itself. I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. Then there is the developer layer that anybody can build, you know, an application on, and then an example of a wallet that's built on Celo called Valora that makes crypto as easy as sending a text to someone. All right. So we think of Celo as a side chain to Ethereum. It is an EVM compatible blockchain. It's proof of stake with really high throughput. And the whole idea here is that you can run blockchain applications on a mobile phone that is $20. We had a team that was based in Sierra Leone that literally picked up mobile phones directly from the airport, and they were able to use it. So you don't need the latest Android or the latest iPhone to be able to run the applications. We also, I think, have like this really interesting approach. So there are stable assets that are on Celo. I think one of the big pieces here is that you can pay gas using any of these currencies, whereas when you think of other traditional blockchains, you may have to pay gas in like Ethereum as an example. And this we think is really convenient. Trying to figure out where exactly there we go. And you know, one of the other interesting pieces here is that you can send again crypto just by knowing someone's telephone number. You don't need to memorize a long address. You simply can send it as easy as you can see here, Vitalik's telephone number, which is not real, but being able to text it. And the other big piece of here is there's an identity protocol. So this phone number identity mapping is really unique to Celo as well. Trying to figure out. There we go. One of the other big pieces is that, so if you think about how many of you in the room have used crypto, have blockchain wallets? Everyone, I'm assuming? Yes. So in order to send crypto to someone, they have to have a wallet already stored, correct? With Celo, we actually use an escrow smart contract. So you can send crypto to someone's phone number. It will send them a text message. And then once they basically claim that, that address, they're able to claim the crypto. So this escrow smart contract is something that's really unique to Celo as well. One thing that I think sets Celo apart is that we are a planet positive blockchain. What that means is that our mainnet launched on Earth Day of 2020. And from the Genesis block, we actually allocated a % of the Epic rewards to offset carbon. We were the very first blockchain that ever did this. And if you refer to our white paper, we actually talk about this, and we talk about natural backed assets as well as being like the vision for Celo. To date, there have been 3,000 tons of carbon that we've offset. And then when you look at our treasury, there are 83,000 tons of carbon offsets that are held in our treasury as well. Okay. And then one of the other big components of Celo is that we're really focused on real world use cases. So this is all about utility, not just speculation, but how are people going to use crypto in the real world? And I'm going to highlight a few of those use cases here. You can see kind of a number of them: save, basically rewards and interest, payments, remittances, micro work, humanitarian aid, and lending as well. Let me kind of dive into a few. All right. So one is a project called Impact Market. They basically provide universal basic income, again, to anyone with a wallet. Very low transaction fees. This is operationally very cost efficient for this UBI program. And there are 250 communities around the world that are receiving UBI payment. About 45,000 recipients, all receiving 50 cents worth of Celo a day. That works better. Yeah. And you can see, communities in Latin America, in Africa, and Asia, and Europe that are all basically benefiting from this by receiving UBI. And what's really special about this is that we're seeing these communities, yes, much better. We're seeing these micro ecosystems evolve. So it's not just about that one individual or 10 individuals that are receiving crypto, but like the local market, in this case, the local fruit stand that's able to receive payments. And these ecosystems are quite special and that are evolving around the world. Another one to highlight is when we look at, traditionally, I think what we think of as like DeFi. One business case that I'm going to highlight is under collateralized lending. This is Jorge. He is a bike messenger for a company called Rappi in Colombia. This loan was about giving him $500 to purchase a motorized bicycle. And so he went from basically using a push pedal bicycle to having a motorized bicycle. What this did is this not only increased his productivity, but it also doubled and quadrupled their income within a month. And this was like really phenomenal, like really changed lives. And what was really interesting is that it was this group of Venezuelan refugees that were all able to use reputation and other sources to basically obtain this loan, things that were not available to them in Colombia. Delay. Okay. Another use case that's emerging, you'll see the stickers everywhere that talks about refi summer. We've got like some exciting projects that are launching on Celo that are focused on like carbon offsets, but really, really exciting things that are happening, with urban gardens and community currencies around the world. I think this is really interesting because we're seeing these use cases emerge that are not only about like DeFi, but how do we take something and we really do something positive for the earth. I think this is also a really interesting use case when we think about blockchain and some of the coordination problems that we have, outside of crypto. I think this is where blockchain really has a unique opportunity to kind of help us address. It's going. And then if you're interested in kind of learning more about this, there's an organization that that sort of spun out of the Celo Foundation. It's called the Climate Collective. Really working on different types of use case. One that I talked about was carbon offsets. The second is natural backed assets. There's a company called Moss that basically is tokenizing parts of the Amazon. And then really just looking at kind of like, we think about regenerative economics, it's more than just climate, right? So we're like, how do we kind of rethink DeFi? And so you look at things like, mutual credit. And then I think somebody's going to be talking a little bit about like the green asset pool on Uniswap later in the afternoon. Okay. And the last use case highlight is micro work. And so, we know, I think traditionally in like the Web2 world, there are things like the gig economy, right? And you can definitely see, we've seen the gig economy in Web3, but like what's really interesting is that there are other use cases like learn to earn. You can see rabbit hole featured here, but also micro work is something that's really interesting. And so there is, unemployment rates are quite high in countries around the world. This is Kenya. This is Lillian, who is a nursing student who just graduated and basically wasn't able to find a job. On using Celo, using her mobile phone, she was able to perform like mechanical Turk-like tasks, right? So CAPTCHA on her cell phone and receive payments instantly. Microwork is not new to crypto. It exists also in Web2. But the difference here is that when she was performing this or doing that type of activity in Web2, she often had to wait 2 weeks to get paid, right? And a lot of her earnings were basically eaten away by exchange rates and like the cross-border payment fees. And all of this was solved in crypto because she didn't have to wait 2 weeks. She was paid immediately after completing those tasks. And then obviously remittances and cross-border payments, there were no fees associated with that. It cost less than 1/100th of a cent to send a Celo. And then the last section I'll just talk about here is that Celo is growing. We are kind of a smaller chain when you think about some of the other big ones, but when you look at the 7-day active addresses and the growth rate across the different chains, Celo is actually the highest. We've been, again, I think, a little under in real 3.5, and there are 2.5 million monthly active wallets on Celo. And then our community is super global. It's one thing that we're quite proud of. We have builders and community members in 200 countries around the world. It's, I think one of the most global ecosystems. We have a team that is kicking off an Africa Founder Tour this month with the plan of doing something similar in Latin America. And so we're very global, global blockchain. And in terms of, where next, we have something called the Alliance for Prosperity. And the thinking there is that, in order to solve some of the biggest problems, you need to bring the greatest minds together. And there are over 150 organizations that are a part of this Alliance for Prosperity. They're committed to Celo's mission and want to help and build on Celo in some way. And so you can see organizations like Deutsche Telekom, you can see organizations like Grameen, Gitcoin, Kickstarter, and a number of others. It's, again, I think one of the big benefits here is that there's a lot of diversity of thought, diversity of opinions when you bring these folks together to kind of really focus on these problems that we're trying to solve. And as we look ahead, we really want to focus on how together we can build a regenerative financial system. We want to make every summer a refi summer, and invite you to participate and help us create prosperity for all. If you're interested in kind of learning more about the university program that TC was speaking about earlier, we go. You can scan this QR code and learn more about it. And I'm also happy to answer any questions that you have as well. All right. Thank you.
Do you plan to develop in other geographical zone like South Asia or?
We've seen a lot of growth in Southeast Asia. We have team members that are based in Africa and in Latin America, all over the world. But Southeast Asia has quickly been growing for us. And so that's an area that we're going to focus on next. Yeah.
One question, I'm wondering, for example, some countries like Africa, you know, they pair us with prepaid cards in,
Yes.
right? Is it something where you can have a link with Celo? Is it something you're working on or thinking about?
Yeah, there's an organization called Kotani Pay, and they provide a lot of on and off ramp solutions. You know, basically linking mobile money, which is quite prevalent in Africa, to crypto and to blockchain. Really interesting. One of our colleagues, Daniel Kamoto, has been really focused on that use case. And if you're interested in learning more, I'm happy to connect him.
Sure,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you again for your time.
For that introduction. So now that we have heard a little bit about Celo and who we are, we will go ahead and hear about some blockchain clubs, where they came from, what they're doing now, and how they see the future. So please welcome Berkeley, Columbia, and Michigan to the panel. And we'll have lovely Daniel as our moderator.
You. Or I can just rotate the microphone. You guys can keep that one. And you hear me through the microphone. Okay. Sweet. So we have a small crowd today. So I just want to know where you guys come from. I met you before, Rafael. I know you work at Peru, and you had experience in crypto working for ethical. And the two guys in the back, you guys from KRYPTOSPHERE, right? What about you? Let's see. Sweet, sweet, nice, nice. So today I'm joined by team Adrian and Isreen from Michigan, Columbia, and Berkeley. And one of the reasons we wanted to have this panel is because you guys represent some of the coolest blockchain clubs out there. So I have prepared a few questions for out of the opportunity of having you here, kind of like try to understand what makes a successful blockchain club, and basically try to like have a discussion about where blockchain clubs are going, and hopefully looking at creating a video that helps others launch their own blockchain clubs wherever they are, right? starting from kind of like your experiences. So to start it, perhaps I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and the blockchain club you represent. And yeah, perhaps with that we can get started. I don't know if you would like to start, Adrian. Sure.
Hey everyone, I'm happy to be here today. My name is Adrian. I'm COO at Blockchain at Columbia, and I study Master of Computer Science there right now. I also recently co-founded a blockchain club at the Technical University of Munich, and I'm also affiliated with the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation. So I'm essentially doing a lot in the educational space in blockchain. And yeah, so I represented a blockchain at Columbia. I think we're a pretty big club and there's a lot going on. We have 50 active members on a weekly basis. Our Discord and Telegram hold in total about 600 people. And yeah, I think there are a lot of details we can step into today. Thank you.
Definitely. Hey, everyone. My name is Tim. Today I'll be representing blockchain at Berkeley. Blockchain at Berkeley is, I would say, a pretty established blockchain club. We have around 70 active members. We participate in many initiatives, from consulting to education to DeFi governance to even grants now. And yeah, personally, I'm studying CS at Berkeley, and I'm going to be a junior in the fall.
Hi everyone, my name is Nasreen. I am representing blockchain at Michigan. I recently graduated from the University of Michigan with a degree in data science. Blockchain at Michigan kind of rebranded and restarted in around 2018. And we are primarily focused in, of course, education, consulting, governance, and we are soon to create a blockchain at Michigan DAO. And I'd love to talk more about that as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. And I'm also really excited to know that we have people who recently graduated, people who will be junior soon. So that's, I'll say, a very diverse crowd to speak with. And perhaps to get started with the conversation, I would love to kind of like root it in your individual decisions of joining a blockchain club. I would love to know why you joined a blockchain club in the first place. And yeah, what inspired you to make that decision?
Yeah, so I can definitely go first on this one. So I joined a blockchain at Berkeley mainly because I was looking for a community of crypto people, and especially since my freshman year was during COVID, so it was very difficult to meet people, and I just found the community and blockchain at Berkeley to be absolutely incredible. I think before college, I had done some explorations in crypto. I got into Ethereum around 2018, and I just wanted to explore the space more, learn about different chains, and I felt that blockchain at Berkeley was the opportunity for me to do so.
So I can go next. In complete contrast to that, when I first entered college, I'd actually never coded before. So my first experience really coding was my freshman year intro to CS course. And I vaguely heard about blockchain, like in passing, someone crying about a Bitcoin scam in the news. And so I wanted to learn more about this. And so I stumbled upon blockchain at Michigan, and kind of the rest is history. I realized that there's a lot you can do with blockchain that as a technology, even beyond like DeFi. And so I actually started off as doing research for infrastructure. And so a lot of my first stuff was in private or permissioned blockchains, which was really interesting. And then I slowly moved over into DeFi and your more traditional blockchain space.
Yeah, my background is, I guess, also a bit different. So when I did my undergrad in Munich, I was surrounded by a lot of Bitcoin maxis, I suppose, which probably has something to do with the German culture. I don't know. So when I came to Columbia, I was actually first, like, I come to a new country, new university. So I just explored which clubs exist essentially. But I quickly recognized that blockchain at Columbia, like, all the members just really inspired and just showed and demonstrated me how little I know about the space. And so I really wanted to be a part of it and just learn more from all these incredible talents that are in this club. And yeah, I'm really happy to be part of this community today.
Yeah, that is great. That is great. So perhaps one thing that might be good to is just to give an overview of your club and what you do and how it works, how someone joins, and kind of like what is the, I know many of your clubs have different lanes of work. What are those? Yeah, I would love to get with that, start with that primer.
Sure. I guess I could start. So blockchain at Michigan is divided into two main sections. The first one, any member that wants to join the club, regardless of what they want to do with it in the future, has to start with education. So we run a cohort that runs the length of one semester. And in that, you can either choose to go the technical track or the non-technical track. Technical, by the end of that cohort, you will write a Solidity smart contract and we'll do a mini project. For non-technical, you will write like a business use case or do some research, a deep dive into an aspect of blockchain. After that, once you've like graduated the cohort, you have the option to go into consulting, which would mean that you're placed on a team. You apply for a team. So we've done consulting for people like PayPal, TRM Labs, or you can do your own projects. You can do your own research, build your own idea out. And then through there, Blockchain at Michigan will help you potentially gain funding, help you apply to different accelerators in the space. And then what is new and what is upcoming is after a member goes through the cohort, they can become a part of the soon to be launched blockchain at Michigan DAO. And that will allow them to, again, have more resources and connected to the space, as well as potentially getting grants through our own DAO instead of having to go to external sources. So that's a little bit of the pathway. So yeah, to be like a fully actualized member of the club, it just takes one semester for the education cohort, and then the world is unlocked to you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys have such an educational onboarding. I think at Columbia, we have a good educational offer by professors themselves. So every term we have different blockchain classes. So that's something we haven't been focusing on in the past. So usually the member experience is you go to our hackathon or conference, or you go to a member meeting, you talk to a bunch of people, learn about their projects, and somehow get involved. So it's more like there's so many smart people running their own stuff, their own business. We also have even a blockchain club at business at our business school. So yeah, there are a lot of opportunities, and in the club itself, it's more we're planning events and socials. We do governance, DeFi. We hold a lot of Uniswap, Compound, DYDX to govern there. So, but it's more that the initiative has to come from members themselves to get involved in these areas. But this will actually change now. We're completely restructuring our board, completely restructuring our onboarding, completely restructuring the member experience and participation. So yeah, we're actually really excited to see how that will turn out in the future. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so for blockchain at Berkeley, we were founded in like late 2014 as Bitcoin Association of Berkeley, because Bitcoin was like the only big thing back then. And then in late 2016, we rebranded into Blockchain at Berkeley. So currently, for people who wish to join, we take you through an application process. Unfortunately, we receive like way more applications than we have space for. So unfortunately, we have to like cut out some people. But I will say that for people who unfortunately don't get to join, we have many community initiatives that we run, such as monthly meetups with ecosystem partners, and also most of our educational materials are out for the public. But for members of Blockchain at Berkeley, we are split into a couple of different departments. So first, we have our consulting department, which is responsible for working with clients, both big and small, to execute a wide array of projects. And inside, we have developers, business consultants, and designers. So you can join as a consultant, and you'll be placed in one of those tracks. And during your first semester, you will receive education in your preferred track. On top of consulting, we have an education department, and the education department is responsible for running 2 decals that we hold at UC Berkeley, as well as our edX course and all of our externally facing educational initiatives. Similarly, you can apply into the education department, and then you will receive a semester of training before you're a full member. On top of education, we have a research department now. So the research department is actually one of our newer departments. It composes both free-form research projects. So these are projects that individuals have passion for, and they want the support of Blockchain at Berkeley in doing so. And for individual research projects, we can help staff projects with members, with talent, as well as help them find grants and partners. on top of individual research project, our research department also participates in governance. So we have a couple of governance team leads, and then we have protocol leads depending on which protocol the governance is for. And the research department is basically open for any BAM member in any other department to join.
You guys have a big club. So you guys talked about a bunch of things that I would like to touch at least for a little bit. You started talking about education and how important it is to onboard someone. You guys have a different approach to it. I would love to dive deeper into it. Why does education matter? Educating someone in blockchain is hard because the technology changes so fast. How do you approach it? And like, what is important when you're trying to create like the basic knowledge for someone to just like enjoy a club or launch into create a new project or actually launch into consulting with a company?
I guess I'll start this off. So when I inherited the club, there actually wasn't like a educational track like set in stone. There was like, when I did my first semester at blockchain at Michigan, the education was kind of free-form, did a little bit of intro stuff. Like we watched a couple of like videos. I think we honestly watched some of Berkeley's videos, I think too, before, yeah, I think everyone has at some point. Your Merkle tree video was one that I've watched and still remember. So we decided when my like leadership team, we decided that it was important to have some sort of standard for what we can expect a blockchain at Michigan member to know, especially if we want to get into consulting, because we didn't want our members to feel overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge. And we also know that going to school at University of Michigan is stressful and you don't have a lot of free time. So we want it to be as easy as possible. So with that in mind, we are at a slight have any school courses. So there is no professor that's like a blockchain professor. I think there's one course in the business school that is like more on DeFi, but it's still very intro. So what we decided to do was kind of take a program and basically run our own mini course. We tried to get it accredited at one point, but it was more effort than it was worth. So we just do it in our club. And so every semester, we have two people teaching, one technical, one non-technical. And obviously, the advisors and alumni can support, do guest lectures. And so we've built out the curriculum that way. And yeah, we think that it's important for people to have some base knowledge, and in special circumstances, like if someone comes in and they already have a bunch of knowledge, sure, they can like test out of the cohort, but we just think it helps people get to know each other, form a community. And then as you move through the club, you always have like at least your cohort members as like people you can work on projects with and reach out to and have that sense of community, which is nice.
Yeah, so for blockchain at Berkeley, what we kind of like strive for when it comes to education is first, we really want our members to be able to know the fundamentals of crypto really well. That's why in our fundamentals decal, which all new members are required to take, we emphasize like Bitcoin and like the actual infrastructure, as you said, Merkle trees very much, because we know that a lot of blockchains, like the space might evolve very quickly, but a lot of these like fundamental principles will remain the same. Because I think our philosophy is that the space evolves so quickly that it is very challenging to teach people about everything in this space. But what we want to instill in our members is the fundamentals so that anything that they decide to learn, they will have a strong grasp of. And the second thing is that we want our members to understand really the philosophy behind crypto, right? Because we want our members to, understand, right, why we need decentralized systems, why we need blockchain, right? Because we feel that if they understand the philosophy behind crypto, right, that motivates them to contribute more to the space, contribute more to the club, and just like really understand why decisions are made. In terms of our educational like content and our output, we do have a dedicated education department. We currently have around 10 people working on a wide range of initiatives. We have 2 decals on campus that are open to all. So very briefly, a decal at UC Berkeley is a 2-unit class, 1 or 2 units, and it's like run by students. There are lots of other decals, but we run 2 about blockchain, and those are very, very popular. We also run an edX course that I think called like Blockchain Fundamentals, and the edX course is pretty widely used, and we're also in the middle of revamping it right now.
You have a proper professor of blockchain.
Yeah, so actually, also to answer your question, the location New York, I think just has shaped our experience so different because New York is a major hub in Web3, so there's just a lot going on. So how you could essentially see blockchain at Columbia is enabling the students to access it really quickly and get the best opportunities out of it. And yeah, at Columbia, we have a bunch of different blockchain professors. Joe Roughgarden, he was doing weekly reading groups with us. He now launched his own crypto research center at Columbia. And I mean, we'll see if he will still be with us next term. But yeah, I mean, there's so many conferences going on. So we've enabled our students to volunteer at these conferences, so many hacker houses, hackathons, so many companies are based in New York. So you cannot make the whole member base active with a few of them. It's like the whole member base is active in all of them. So they're all the time posts in Discord and Telegram. Somebody's connected and says, hey, you can do this. Like you can teach crypto there, or you can volunteer here, or you can have a sponsorship to go to that place. You know, there's just so much going on. And also Boston is not far away, right? So you have MIT, Harvard, also directly next door in New York. You have NYU, Cornell, Columbia, right? So there is so much going on, and our members are just everywhere. Yeah.
That is actually super cool. And you probably share something like that, just having San Francisco and the Silicon Valley close by. Is it? Tell us more about how you plug into an existing community. How do you build a bridge between the school and the companies? What is your experience doing that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, as you said, there is a lot of like blockchain stuff going on in the Bay Area as well, like Berkeley and Stanford and even like SF proper. I think for us, we have an entire department dedicated to external initiatives called the external department. And, we staff it with around like 10 to 12 business developers. And their entire responsibility is to like go out to companies and like reach out to those that they find are interesting or they want to do partnerships or sponsors with. And I feel like that's mainly how we get connected with people in the blockchain space. We also pretty heavily rely on our alumni network because we've been around for so long. We have tons of alumni in all different kinds of fields, and they're always very helpful, and they're willing to like hook us up with whatever connections that we need for the most part. I think when it comes to connections with Berkeley specifically, there are a couple of blockchain professors at Berkeley, namely Don Song and a couple of others. But in terms of like our education, we run our own education. We don't really work with professors in terms of like base level education, although we do have research initiatives that we partner with professors for.
So if anyone's feeling a little overwhelmed that like, oh, have access to either of the coasts or a big city, don't fear, it is possible. So the way Blockchain at Michigan did it, so I'm actually the part of the team that did the first ever like consulting. And the only advice I have to give you is just kind of don't shut up. Just keep emailing companies. We did a bunch of cold calling, a bunch of cold emailing. I remember like I would just one time I drove to Chicago and back in one day just to go attend a conference to get our name, like the club's name out there. Yeah, so when our like club is dedicated to giving members opportunities, and it is kind of hard sometimes just financially to send someone out to the West Coast or the East Coast. So a lot of the times, especially since COVID, a lot of things like moved online. So that was really helpful too. But yeah, our biggest thing was just cold email, try to get knowledge with like other foundations. So we worked a little bit with the Blockchain Acceleration Foundation out in California. We worked with Blockchain Education Network in the early stages too. I think they're MIT, New York based. And yeah, so we just kind of piggybacked off other more established organizations to get our name out there. And then once we did that, people then recognized Blockchain at Michigan as something too. And then now we can kind of have that little more momentum to then continue our consulting program.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. And I've been thinking about that a lot because I disagree with the, with this, how to say, like with the structure of being dependent on external partners to connect with sponsors, right? Like, but it is a lot of effort to connect to all of these companies yourself. So how do you do it? Do you want to rely on an external partner that over generations connects you with the right sponsors? Or will you always be on the seek of establishing your own partnerships, which are not necessarily stable in the end, right? Like now with the bear market, we had 20 sponsors for a hackathon in spring, which was pretty easy to get together, to be honest. But then now for Ledgerfest and fall, I mean, we'll get it together, but you can see it's much harder to reach out to companies. So yeah, that is a big question, and I think that big blockchain clubs face completely different challenges and risks than smaller blockchain clubs. Yeah.
Perhaps that's a good question to follow up. What are some of the challenges you guys face as a club? Like, what should people be aware if they're thinking about launching a club themselves?
If you don't mind, I'll start this off from the perspective of like a club that's still relatively smaller compared to Columbia and Berkeley. Some of the main challenges, one will always be sponsorships, no matter like what the market is doing. I think like finding sponsorship, obtaining that relationship and keeping them is always a consideration. But the other thing, especially for a university club in its early stages that might not have faculty support and might not have like a baked in like institutionalized support, is member turnover and making sure there's some continuity. As much as we love everything to be decentralized, for like student clubs, it is important to have a leadership structure that lets you have overlap. So an example of that we've done at Blockchain at Michigan, just kind of to enforce that, is you can go from general member, you apply to a board position, but then to apply for like president or like any of like the higher positions, you need to have done like 1 year in board prior or have like a very strong application to do so. So that kind of makes sure that there's like people who have been in the club and involved for multiple years. And so that somewhat stabilizes turnover. That's another thing to consider. And then after that, I guess this just goes back to making sure, a challenge is always making sure that you're keeping up with the times, because blockchain space moves very quickly. And to echo what Berkeley does, again, its focus on education, I think, is one of our biggest strengths. Because as long as members know enough to then research and learn about things independently, the club will always continue to have new members and new talent and new initiatives. So that's kind of like the three things that Blockchain at Michigan really focuses on in terms of like just club overall health and continuity.
Yeah, I mean, I've been focusing more on opportunities, answering your past question. So I will be honest and focus on some risks, I think, which are important to consider for many blockchain clubs. So I think one is the lack of regulation. If you govern tokens and get involved with governance, there are regulatory issues you'll be facing, like insider trading, and there have been blockchain clubs facing these issues. Another thing is how, like, what kind of legal body governs your, like, if you want to found a DAO, right? We do it with an external nonprofit that governs our DAO, so it's not necessarily related to the university. And then a bunch of, like, another risk is student data, right? Like, I mean, we can obviously see these student hubs, blockchain clubs carry a lot of value. They're extremely valuable to industry, but industry has a bit more knowledge. They have, you know, there are people working full time and students are busy with other things. They're not necessarily have the space to assess the risks they're engaging with, right? So many companies just trying to get the most data, you know? And so I think student blockchain clubs have to realize their own value and have to effectively streamline and channel their value without exposing their whole community to particular players in the industry. Yeah, and I think that carries a bunch of other side risks, which I'm not dive deeper now into, but yeah, there are a bunch of things now just because it's the new space that we will definitely solve in the future. But for now, they still remain huge risks for existing blockchain clubs and also new blockchain clubs.
So protecting the community, protecting the value the community creates. What about Berkeley?
Yeah, so I think first, I like to second Michigan's point about how people is the most important thing in the club. So in my view, right, yes, blockchain student organizations, we can be LLCs or DAOs, we can do great work, but fundamentally what we are a group of people. And that is the crux of like most of our issues in the past, as well as like most of our successes are the people that we've gotten. So I think that for us, for example, member turnover is a big issue. We constantly think about how we can like retain members for longer. How do we incentivize members to both like participate in the blockchain space as well as participate in the administration of the club, which is like often not very fun and can be rather repetitive. And I think that just like focusing on the people in your club is going to be super important, because if you can have a good leadership group and if you have like good younger members that you can see becoming leaders in 2 or 3 years, then you can like easily go really far with like just those people. But on the other hand, if you like can't see that, I think you need to like take a step back, kind of like think about, oh, like what am I doing? What should we be doing to incentivize members? An analogy that I often like to think about is Ethereum cat herders. So in the Ethereum cat herders, their motto is that everyone that contributes to open source development does so with a different goal, right? Some people might want experience, some people might want something on their GitHub, some people might want to learn. And it's a job of the Ethereum cat herders to align everyone's different incentives in the right direction so they can push the ecosystem forward. And I think that is something that you as or people in university blockchain clubs need to do, because everyone joins the club for a different reason, right? Some might be chasing clout, some might want to learn, some might want a job, right? And it's our job to take all these different initiatives and align them in the right direction for the betterment of the club and the blockchain space as a whole.
I just want to do a quick time check. How are we doing? Okay. So in terms of challenges, perhaps I wanted to touch just quickly on bear market, and kind of like get a sense of how a blockchain club experiences a bear market.
Yeah, I can start off on this. So I think personally for blockchain at Berkeley, see the bear market affecting like our core functionality too much. One of our goals or our philosophies is that we want to stay away from like market hype, right? We want to focus on the underlying technology and like solid applications that we know will be successful. And this is often independent of market conditions. However, we do see the bear market affecting our club in a number of ways. I think first we will be seeing less applications in the fall. Oftentimes our application numbers quite closely correlate to the price of assets because that's what generates hype. However, we don't see that as being too big of an issue because usually the people that come in who just want to like ride the hype wave or make a quick buck don't end up getting into the club. So we don't see like the number of like actually qualified applicants decreasing much. Secondly, I will say that it's going to be harder to find partnerships and sponsorships. Even now, we've had to like do significantly more reaching out to different organizations. We've had to kind of justify why different organizations should sponsor us more, and we've seen less sponsor money coming around. But I think this is all something that we are currently planning for, and we're just really excited to see the space kind of like honestly go through a bit of like some soul searching and see some new applications come out for the next bull market.
I'll keep this brief because it's extremely similar to that answer. Because we're an education-focused club and we don't do any like so-called trading, like there was actually a club at Michigan years ago that actually was like Wolverine blockchain that did trading, didn't last very long. We don't expect to see much of a difference in terms of like application into our core mission. The only thing that I can see is again, like, finding partnerships is going to be hard. But I will preface this by saying the first year that I had the club, we actually had no sponsorships. It is very possible to run a blockchain club with like very little money. So I think that our core operation will not change. We just will keep focusing on education, like research projects, maybe still have some consulting, and we're really focusing on the launch of our DAO. So then when the market, turns, and then we will be ready to go to accept like sponsorships, and when the market changes, we will be positioned to capitalize on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can only agree. Like, it's again, you can see it as a risk because members are dropping out, and the numbers will not look good, like from the perspective of industry. But for me personally, I consider it a huge opportunity because the people are dropping out who are just in for the hype and the money, essentially, right? And we're trying to be a more technical, more sophisticated, like doing research, right? And not only being on the hype wave. And New York City tends to be vulnerable to hype waves, essentially. and that is the reason why the last 2 years a lot of new opportunities came into presence, right? Like we could engage with many more things, but that also led to convolution, to be honest. So there's so many projects going on, so many people being involved in so many things, as I've already said. And now I think the bear market is really a great opportunity to like sort out the things that are not really of value to us as a blockchain club, and consolidate and kind of bring together all of these opportunities and projects that have formed, build a more effective board, let people collaborate more. And I think this is also a huge buzzword, like collaboration, which I really want to support more, that there's cross-university collaboration and also more collaboration in a club. And what you've mentioned, aligning the intentions of members, that is like the biggest challenge, like the biggest thing a blockchain club can achieve. But I think the bear market is the place to strive for exactly that.
So perhaps now we can talk about what's in store. What are some of the exciting new projects you guys are working on? Perhaps you can tell us about. You can start by telling us about your the DAO you guys are planning for. Kind of like what I would love to get from this question is where are these clubs going? What is exciting in the future of blockchain clubs?
Sure. So I guess I can start. So I mentioned the DAO. Blockchain at Michigan is, I think, out of the people on this panel, we're the last to form the DAO, but we're still excited about it, still hyped. We are forming it with help from EDU DAO, and it's going to be a LLC elected as a C Corp, which is slightly different from, I think, you guys. I think both of you guys are nonprofits, or yeah. Yeah, that is also the bottom line for doing anything. It's complicated. So yeah, right now we're really excited about that. Our target launch is the end of this summer. However, the legal team that we were working with currently has COVID, so we'll see how delayed we are. It is what it is, right? Besides that, we also are part of the governance. So we recently had a proposal launch for Uniswap to have Uniswap on Celo, which passed. So that is super exciting, and I'll actually be talking about that later this afternoon. In terms of long-term vision for the club, if you guys are interested in ever doing the blockchain club, I highly recommend having a loose 5-year plan or more for the club. And so we are on track for that. We are on track to keep expanding our education, expand our research, expand into governance. And then with the DAO, our big thing that we're trying to do is become more of a opportunity for students within our club to get grants from us rather than have to go to all these different foundations or external things. So we want to really provide more value to our students. So that is our next big goal. So hopefully with the DAO launch, we'll have a system for grants, maybe even do something with VC, who knows? Sky's the limit with the DAO. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, at Columbia, I think we're one of the few blockchain clubs that have established our own DAO without external partners, which was a huge challenge. We are really fortunate because we have the student resources. We have law students who are able to form this external nonprofit and build the DAO around it. So we have established our line DAO. And yeah, I mean, there were some difficulties along the way because of gas fees. Paying out line tokens to all of the members is kind of a challenge. But in the next term, we'll definitely try to cope with that and get the DAO more involved in board management, make our board, our club structure more decentralized. But I think it's fair, it had to take 3 or 4 really highly motivated people to build up the club, to ramp up all these different projects, get the students somehow align their motivation, energy to the same thing kind of. And now again, for bear market, it's the time to use the tools we have, use the DAO we've established during the bull market and make it actually useful.
What about you,
So I have been part of many student organizations in the past. I mean, I'm at the end of my master's now. And so I've gotten a lot of experience with student organizations and how to effectively run them. So what we're doing now is just essentially trying to establish responsibilities and track or kind of hold people accountable for what they're doing, having teams who are working on the same thing. It has been more implicit the last 2 years, the structure, and people were highly motivated, and so they could drive the boat. But again, in the bear market, it's not the same, and also it's more sustainable, especially with generation overturn, right? To have like, for example, let's say one student comes in and is there for 2 years, establishes a whole network and gets sponsors. This network is gone when this person is gone, right? So you shouldn't make it dependent on a single, like on an individual. You have to make it dependent on a team where individuals can drop out and other individuals can come in. So you need just like essentially a little bit like a business, right? But you have to be, you have to find the balance between this like blockchain decentralization, which I hope for will be ultimately the thing, and we can be completely decentralized as a blockchain club. But for now, it's just simply not possible. It would be ineffective and unproductive. So you have to find a balance between taking old standards and knowing how to drive such a community, but also trying to implement already elements of a DAO to make it decentralized in this existing structure.
Sorry, before you answer your question, I think the TV went off. I don't know if you see if we wanted to check that, just in case we need it. Okay, go ahead.
All right, yeah. So for us, a lot of our short-term goals revolve around scaling our club. So a lot of our club infrastructure has been built around the assumption that we'll have around 20 to 30 active members. But we went through a massive expansion last year. Now we have around like 70 active members, and we could possibly hit like 100 by the end of next year. So we need to kind of like look back and like redo a lot of our management infrastructure. Like, for example, how do we, ensure project leads and like project managers have the tools that they need to ensure participation? How do we keep everyone engaged, right? Like, what should we do about like long meetings that are only going to get even longer, right? So these are things that we will be heavily thinking about in the short term. In the long term, though, I think there are some interesting ideas that I want to implement. For example, one idea could be like venture capital. Currently, we have a grants program, and all of our grants are non-dilutive, which means that we just like give people money and let them go do their thing, right? In the future, we could potentially look at dilutive grants, where we would basically take some sort of like equity in their project. That could be a really interesting way to support different projects in the space and have a little bit more at stake. We are currently also in the middle of building out actually 2 separate DAOs. One DAO will be an externally facing DAO, and this will be in collaboration with EduDAO, so membership entities, all that stuff. And the second DAO is more, it's not a proper DAO, but it's more for like internal incentive alignment, and like how do we reward people for example, coming to meetings, coming to socials, stuff like that. And I think like they'll both be connected in some form, but that's all stuff that we need to hash out. I think also the consulting department in particular has a lot of interesting things planned for it. In the past, we've mainly done projects with big organizations such as like PayPal, Airbnb, Samsung. However, we are moving towards a more crypto native projects. So for example, we have a couple of projects where like we'll actually be working on chain infrastructure, and these would be paid for by grants. So we're super excited about that. I think moving consulting department into like a more crypto native, like grants-based project approach is beneficial for the future as we see like the space becoming more and more crypto native.
Super cool. Super. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm done with my questions, but I guess we still have a few minutes, right? Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. So let's take a break. Thanks so much.